Hello and welcome back to our West Hempfield Forward local politics show. My name is Nick Dennis and I am your 2025 candidate for West Hempfield Township Supervisor along with Steve Walk. And today on the show, I'd like to talk about housing. So, I've found that when I tell people I want more housing, they get concerned because what they're thinking of is large developments going into farmland near their home, increasing traffic, and just, years of construction projects, loud and noisy near their home. They don't like it, they don't want it, they don't want more housing. So, why am I talking about housing? Well, I think that we do need housing, but we need different kinds of housing than what we're currently making. So, currently, what we're doing is large developers come in and they make these big cookie cutter developments that are really expensive and not really meeting the needs of our community. I think what we need are starter homes for, people just starting out, maybe fresh out of college or just moving out for the first time. They need, something small for maybe a young family or young professionals. They don't need a lot of space, maybe one bedroom, a kitchen, um, maybe two bedrooms. But what we're seeing is, three, four bedroom, three bathroom, huge houses that are not meeting that starter home definition. I also think that seniors and older folks living in West Hempfield also might like the option to downsize, um, move into a smaller, easier to manage home now that maybe their kids are out of the house or they don't need all that space anymore. But it's, again, those types of homes, those smaller one, two bedroom homes, they just don't really exist and we're not building them. So that's what I mean when I say we need more housing. I think we need more variety of homes that can sort of fill in the space that's missing right now in our neighborhoods. Those small places that are affordable, maybe 100,000 or $150,000 range. That's the kind of homes that we need in West Hempfield. And that's what I mean when we say we need more housing. So let's look at some examples. So I think a great example of what people are worried about is something I found here on Pitney Road. So let's share the screen. So this is Pitney Road back in 2019. You can see tree-lined street, not, people can kind of keep to themselves, pretty rural, lots of green, lots of space between you and your neighbors. And now, again, this is 2019. Now let's take a look at what happened in 2024. Uh-oh. All of that green space is gone. And now look, they're putting up these big single family developments. And I'm sure that the people that live right across the street here were probably not too excited about all the construction. And now there's going to be, all these people driving in and out here. There's going to be traffic on the road. This is what people are worried about when people talk about new housing. This is immediately what comes to mind: housing developments. So this is the Reserve at Lakeside. It's going to be 100 houses, single-family homes, in between Pitney Road and Sycamore Drive, and not far from Grub Lake. I think this is like Mud Lake or something like that. But yeah, a Reserve at Parkside. And the houses are going to look like this. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this kind of home. I kind of think it, you know, kind of cookie cutter, but there's nothing wrong with it. But again, this is not the kind of home that we need right now. So this particular one is selling at $513,990. Single family home, 3 bathrooms, 3 to 5 bedrooms. So yeah, this is a huge home, not a starter home. So that's just, an example that I found here in West Hempfield Township of the kind of development that people are concerned about. People don't want to see near their home. Yes, we need housing, but does it have to be that kind of housing? I think that's the question. We don't want necessarily big new developments coming in. Instead, we need to make use of the space that we already have. We already have sewer and water and all those sorts of amenities going to developments around Mountville and around the Silver Spring area and over by Columbia. So those are the areas we need to focus on building up new housing units in. So a great way to do that is something called an accessory dwelling unit, or ADU. So I'm going to look at a great resource here from AARP talking about the ABCs of ADUs. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check this out, but it's a great guide to the type of housing that we're talking about here today. Filling in existing space in developments in the suburban space that we already have in West Hempfield. So you can see some examples here. They can be detached. It can be, converting a basement. It can be converting a garage. It can be attached to the unit in like an in-law quarter. It can be a second story above a garage or some empty rooms in, the second floor that maybe you don't use. All of these are great ways to create new homes in existing space that is not taking up farmland or taking up that natural space that we want to preserve. So you can see it can be detached, attached, interior on the upper floors or on the lower floors or the basement. It can be above the garage, or you can even convert a garage into it. I've also seen something called a barn dominium, where people convert their barns into housing. So lots of options to use existing space. And we have a history of doing this here in the US. In fact, it's in popular culture too. You can see here, accessory dwelling units show up in neighborhoods throughout the country and even pop culture. Fonzie from Happy Days rented an above garage ADU from the Cunningham family in 1950s Milwaukee. So this is not some crazy new idea. This is sort of the way that we used to do things before we started, imposing lots of zoning laws and restrictions on the types of homes that we can build. This is how we used to do things. If you have never heard of an ADU, I wonder if maybe you've heard of any of these terms. Sometimes they're called accessory apartments or backyard bungalows, backyard cottages, garden apartments, carriage homes, laneway homes, granny flats, in-law suites, secondary dwelling units, all sorts of names for these types of ADUs. But they really are a great thing. This has lots of examples, little case studies of different places where it's been. It sort of takes you through different examples of the different types of ADUs that could be out there. But it really is a great thing for, older folks, empty nesters whose kids are out of the home. You can sort of convert those old bedrooms into maybe a rental unit with an external staircase that somebody could rent from you. It's great for families with young kids. Grandparents could live in that ADU and help with childcare, or maybe a nanny or someone could live there and help the family as they age. It's great for people with disabilities who want to live independently but maybe still want to be around family for support. It's a great affordable starter home for new home buyers, and it's a great source of rental income for people to supplement their money. It's it can be great as like a home office for people who work remote, and it can be a great way to house college graduates that are just getting on their feet. So really, it is a great option and something that I'd really like to see more of here in the township. So that's what an ADU is. I think they're really great. I'm wondering why we don't see more of them here in West Hempfield. So what I did was I dove into the zoning here in the township to see maybe what's holding us back. So I am going to get a little technical, talk about zoning here, but we're going to try and make it as accessible as possible. So don't tune out just yet, but let's take a look at the zoning here. So you can find all of West Hempfield's zoning regulations on the website. They have great, easily searched information on the website about zoning codes. So just basically the way zoning works is they have a bunch of different zoning districts, and they have a map, and it's all mapped out. There's commercial, C1 and C2. There's industrial, I1 and I2. There's rural residential 1, 2, 3. There's residential rural, which is sort of closer to farmland. There's residential rural agricultural, which is, you can see a bulk of it. And then there's traditional village, that's the Silver Spring area that we looked at before. And then there's Q, which honestly, I don't know what it represents, but it's that little chunk right up there. So there's all these rules to try and make sure that certain things aren't built in another part. So like, we don't necessarily want to have like a big industrial plant warehouse built right in a residential area. And so that's sort of the idea of zoning, is to try and parcel out different areas to be exclusively residential, exclusively commercial, exclusively industrial, things like that. And, it's got its pluses and minuses, but I think that often people in housing will tell you that zoning has become pretty complicated and is sort of holding us back when it comes to developing new housing and making the kind of communities that are, fun to live in. So let's take a look here at the zoning regulations when it comes to trying to build those kinds of ADUs that we talked about before. So what I did was I searched garden apartments, because that seems to be what West Hempfield calls ADUs. And within residential 2 and 3 districts, it looks like you can build garden apartments, even 2-family detached homes, quadruplexes. So there's lots of options, but what the catch is, you need to get conditional use approval. So you need to get permission from the Board of Supervisors, and you need to submit a sketch plan. You need to have a feasibility report on how it'll affect sewer and water facilities. And sometimes, depending on the scope of the project, you might also be required to submit a traffic impact study. So it is technically possible under a conditional use, but It's not everywhere. It's only in R2 and R3. So if we look back at the options here, R2 and R3 is this light tan color, and the darker tan color is where it's currently allowed using with a conditional use permit. And it's also allowed when permitted by the Board of Supervisors as a conditional use in C2 commercial districts. You can get these garden apartments and townhouses and things like that. So it is currently allowed in R2 and R3 districts and commercial 2 districts, but there are a lot of, you need to get that conditional use permit, and then there's lots of additional, hoops to jump through. So it's got to fall within the setback for the areas. So the backyard has to have a certain amount from the property line, and it can't be a certain height, and it can't be too close to other buildings. And also we have parking requirements too. So if you wanted to build a garden apartment, you would have to have 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. This could be a private driveway or garages or a common parking lot within 150 feet of the dwelling unit served. So if you wanted to build an ADU in your backyard, you would also have to have 2 parking spaces for that unit somewhere on your property as well. And it couldn't be too close to the borders of your property, and it couldn't be too big or too small. There's lots of rules, and it sort of limits what you can do. So what we are campaigning on here at West Hempfield Forward is we need to really simplify that process and allow people to build the types of homes that they want on their property that they own. They should, ideally, we'd like to simplify it down to a process where you can go in to the township building, get a permit, maybe go in, fill out the information 9 o'clock, and then get your permit and be ready to build after lunch. Ideally, that's the way it should work. It should be really simple. It should be able to fit into your property however it fits. Maybe up along the property line, if that works. We shouldn't worry so much about setbacks and all those things. We should be doing things that make sense for each individual property. Good way that we could simplify that process is by maybe having some sample permits and site plans already filled out that you can just plug and play. So you know that you want a 1-bedroom ADU that is detached in your backyard. Great, we have a site plan already approved, ready to go. You make it work for your lot, and we'll put the okay and get you a permit for that. Or you're wanting to convert your garage. Great, this is a site plan that seems to work well for the space so that it's livable for this size garage. It's already approved. You go get that and you're good to go. That's the kind of process that we'd like to streamline if possible. We'd also like to eliminate parking requirements in residential areas so that you wouldn't have to put in 2 parking spaces if you're trying to make your upstairs empty bedrooms into a rental. You could do that without also having to carve out 2 parking spaces. Trying to eliminate the barriers that might make putting in these ADUs, that's what we're looking for. Trying to lower those barriers, simplify the process, and make it easier to do. Because we want to see this type of housing so that we can, increase the number of people that can live in this wonderful uh, area that we have with all the great farmland and the great hiking trails. We don't want to leave anybody out, but we also don't want to get rid of the stuff that makes West Hempfield great by putting in these new housing developments that takes up land that could be used for other things. So hopefully you have a better understanding of what we mean when we talk about resident-driven housing. We're talking about ADUs, garden apartments, garage conversions, barn dominiums, things like that. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to learn more, we have lots of previous videos on our YouTube page. We also have a website, westhempfieldforward.com. And you can always email us with any questions or concerns, westhempfieldforward@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe and share this if you want. And make sure you come on out and vote. Have a great day.